Welcome to SciTech Culture with Steve Kern and Ben Warner, where we examine science, technology and culture in the 21st century. Visit our website at scitechculture.com.
Hello and welcome to SciTech Culture. My name is Ben Warner and I'm joined once again by my good friend and colleague Steve Kern. Today, Steve, we've been off for a few weeks, but the news doesn't stop, and we're going to deep dive into Trump world again, depending on how that goes.
Well, it's probably been good to have a few weeks off to let him do a few more things that we can talk about.
Yeah, that's just a few more things. The thing that actually just on that, I was watching The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, and he had a week off, and he remarked at the beginning of his show when he came back that it was almost a detoxifying spiritual experience to not be plugged in to any of this stuff, because you can't really make a lot of this stuff up now. I mean, we've obviously, spoken a lot about Trump already this year and even last year. It seems to have ratcheted up a couple of notches in the last week or so with the James Comey book coming out, and it, offering a really bad indictment of the presidency, or at least how Trump is approaching it. There's his personal lawyer, Michael Cohen, now under criminal investigation after that dramatic FBI raid of his offices. He's, potentially looking at an attack on Syria as a counterpoint. Is he doing it because he's under pressure, or is he doing it because it's the right thing to do? These are all the types of things that, in normal circumstances, you probably wouldn't. It's not that you wouldn't think about it. It's that these questions probably wouldn't even come up in the first place. And from that starting point, I've always been wondering, and I'm sure you've been wondering this as well, where's the breaking point? When's it going to go off the cliff?
Well, this is really interesting you say that. I mean, he threatened North Korea with nuclear attack, and then managed to somehow become best buddies with Kim Jong-un. And in some ways, maybe they're such good friends because he seems to be using very similar tactics as Kim Jong-un now, in a lot of the way that he speaks to the rest of the world. The way he warned Russia over Syria was amusing, I guess, if it wasn't so serious. And it's an interesting point you say, where is the breaking point? But I've watched Trump, and I must say, as he would say, he's very, very good at getting himself out of high-stakes situations. And I thought the interesting one this week was the threat over Syria. And then what turned out was the Syrians obviously following him on Twitter went and repositioned their military assets to more defensive positions, apparently around Russian bases. And of course, then the US had to come out and officially say, well, there's no time frame on his threat, whatever that means, except that it means it doesn't have to be imminent. He could be talking about 12 months' time. And I think that's a very good example of how Trump can push these things. Any of the actions that he threatens, whether it's building a wall, whether it's a nuclear strike, whether it's a trade war, he can push these things all the way. And then whether it's him or his advisory team, they find a loophole somehow, thank goodness, and get him off the hook. And that's how they avoid a really serious clash.
Well, this is the thing. He was, during the campaign, he was big on, I'm not telegraphing any of my thoughts or decisions about military actions. And then he goes out and and then he tweets, "Oh, the missiles are coming," or "We're getting out of Syria 6 months ahead of time," or whatever. And but he seems to be one of these few people that can say both of those things at the same time, or distant apart, and it's still consistent for him. One classic example of that, obviously, was the birther movement, and I was watching a documentary about this just the other day on Netflix. It seems to be a lot of Trump documentaries going around at the moment, but they made they did something really good here, which was they showed him literally starting the argument. And then when the press conference after Obama released his birth certificate, he said, well, I'm glad that we can get this behind us so people can stop talking about it.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, well, you're the guy that started it. But because he says it with such conviction, other people did it. Other people can stop it. You know, you would think, oh, well, there must be other people doing it. And that's, if, you know, for all the claims that, you know, he's not a smart guy, he doesn't, you know, he doesn't know what he's doing or whatever, he very clearly knows how to do this.
Well, you know, as I say, we can only assume that if we believe that this is how he does business, then I guess he threatens to fire everyone, you know, that's advising him. I guess he threatens to, you know, walk away from a deal when it's 99% done, and all these things which he may or may not have any intention of actually doing. What he wants is the effect of his words. And he certainly is showing us a new way of politics. This week I tried to imagine what would it be like if Obama was in any of these situations, or Hillary Clinton. And we're so used traditionally to the measured response where, you know, it would be, well, we're going to warn them, we're going to sanction them, we're going to try and have a dialogue with them, and we're going to try and get to the bottom of this. But Trump just comes out and just effectively starts with the most extreme action, straight to the top of the list, and then finds a way to back away from that, and actually seems to be quite effective in then renegotiating the package, having crossed the most extreme option off the list. It's counterintuitive. I think it's frightening for those of us who aren't used to this sort of way of living, but maybe it could be argued it works for him and has worked very successfully for him.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to touch on the fact that the former FBI director, James Comey's book is coming out. It actually hasn't been released yet it's already #1 on most of the seller site. I think Amazon had it at #1, and it's going out next week. They've already been quoting passages from it in the media, and it's relatively explosive, not so much in terms of there's nothing really in there that's going to surprise you. It's just more the manner and the wording that Comey chooses to use to explain all these things that we already know. But the thing that there's probably no need in going through some of the things he said, because you can probably YouTube that. But what the general narrative that's coming out from this, and you got to wonder what's going through Comey's head as well, is that he still appears to be pretty credible. So that if he said that, you know, Trump wanted him by himself in his office and demanded 100% loyalty, you'd probably, that there's nothing to say that he's not believable on that account. But there has to be,
and on Trump's behalf, there's no reason to think that Trump wouldn't ask for crazy stuff from him anyway. So
yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. But the thing is that there is already a I guess a counter narrative coming out, and it's coming from the journalists, not you know, right wingers or left wingers, just the ones that are trying to cover it, who are coming along the lines of, and you kind of would, a normal person would probably think this, is that on the one hand he's sort of corroborating all of these things that we've been seeing for so long about all the crazy stuff, but then he actually takes a lot of cheap shots at Trump at the same time. So, you know, he makes comments about his hand size, his orange skin color, and also points to the, you know, he couldn't leave the salacious material out of the Steele dossier alone. He had to bring up the hookers in the Moscow hotel room. And you got to wonder, would that have been a smart thing to do? You know, if he's trying to offer a counter narrative to what Trump's saying, unless this is the only way you can get attention, you have to do these things at Trump's level to, you know, get your point across.
Look, I don't know. I think, you know, look, I'm confused by it all as to why he would have described, or his descriptions, why they would be the way they are. But maybe he's as careless with what actually happened as Trump is. His recollections are just could be careless.
And
I mean, there could be an interpretation of.
Yeah, and the most generous explanation I've heard of that interpretation is that it's artistic license. The man knows how to write, with a certain degree of flourish, shall we say?
And why he would do that is you couldn't write a story, and let's call it a story, because it could be a true story or it could be an embellished story. But let's just say you couldn't write a story like that about any other politician or any other US president, but Trump allows that because Trump's so extreme. Trump's own dialogue with the US or to his country and to the rest of the world is so extreme and unorthodox that it allows somebody writing a story like this to build it up so it's part of the Trump dialogue. It makes for great reading, I guess.
Well, like I said before, it's you can't make this stuff up, and it's almost better than fiction. Forget about binge watching the latest shows on Netflix. You just have to queue all of this stuff up on cable TV or YouTube and just watch that for 6 hours if you want your entertainment.
Yeah. Oh, look, I agree. I'm not even sure if it matters whether any of this stuff is true or not anymore. I keep on thinking, maybe we'll wake up one day and it was all a dream.
Yeah, exactly. Just want to move on to the final sort of major thing that occurred. I should qualify that by saying there's always stuff occurring, so we've just cherry-picked the ones that we're going to talk about today because there seems to be breaking news every 5 minutes, but it was the FBI raid of Michael Cohen's office, Trump's personal attorney, and then the fact that they announced this morning that he's under criminal investigation, and that this could potentially be worse than the Mueller probe because it was actually referred to a different set of attorneys at the state level, and because of the amount of documentation and equipment seized in the raid, they've got history going back, potentially 2 decades. And essentially they've said that Cohen's only real client was Trump. So if there's anything, so on the surface, that just doesn't look good or bode well for Trump going forward, because as with anything, it's they might have gone in for a specific reason, but then they'll look through and they go, oh, hey, what's this over here, or what's that over there? And then, that's like the proverbial can of worms.
Well, I don't doubt that Trump's legal team will find a reason to dismiss anything not relating to the original investigation. But what can I say? I mean, we've seen Trump cornered like this before, or apparently cornered, because we have no idea really what the truth with any of this is. They're only allegations.
Yeah.
And he's managed to elude prosecution. There's a lot of people out there, I guess, who want to impeach him. So you would think that if there really is anything that could get him, they will. But I wouldn't be surprised to see this just slide straight off him again, and he'll just continue on his way.
Well, I guess just to bring it back to a final point and bring it back to the whole Syria thing as an example, is the wag the dog sort of problem. Is he going to go and bomb a country somewhere to sort of take the heat off of him locally at home because of all of this scandalous stuff going on the side?
Well, that's right, and it's interesting because there couldn't be any other motivation, surely. I mean, if he starts a war, I'm pretty sure he can't be impeached. And if they're going to impeach him anyway, then he'll be impeached for starting the war once they get around to impeaching him. But while I think that they would be in conflict, theoretically anyway, you couldn't impeach the president. So probably while he keeps international relations at a flashpoint all round with 2 or 3 other nations, then he's probably in a pretty good position, if nothing else. But I don't know. I mean, does anyone?
Yeah, who knows? One final point I did want to touch on, which I didn't include in the notes here, is the Speaker of the House retired as well this week, and Paul Ryan, and yeah, he's had enough, obviously. But the scuttlebutt being that it's you know, that he'd had enough. This could potentially cause major problems in the lead up to the midterm elections at the end of the year, because he is ostensibly the type of guy that you need to you know, rally the troops, get the funding, get the lobbyists going. And he's in effect jumping off the Titanic before it hits the iceberg, or he's seen the iceberg and it's going along.
Well, by all accounts, Paul Ryan has been quite a good leader there for the Republicans, and he's managed to hold them together during Trump times. I think they might be big shoes to fill, but maybe he's just leaving so he can write a book
and get a big paycheck. And try, well, and I would think he'd probably want to try to figure out a way to redeem himself, because at the end of the day, he, from what I'd heard, when he came in, he was like the wonder boy of the Republican Party, and he's kind of ended up almost as a laughing stock because he's curtailed basically everything to Trump. He had plenty of opportunities to speak out against him, and he didn't. Or even if he did speak against him, he still ended up supporting him.
Well, that's a really good point. And you wonder, I mean, he's obviously a very good politician, and he hasn't always agreed with Trump. But what I would be interested in seeing, and if he wrote a book, I'd probably be interested in reading it, especially if he talks about how, you know, maybe he was wedged. You know, he was very uncomfortable with Trump early on, but when it was clear that Trump was then a front runner and then probably going to win, I'm sure he knew that probably well before the election. He knew that if they didn't support Trump at that stage, that it would have split the party. So who knows what he had to deal with. But anyway, he seems like an affable gentleman, and wish him well in his retirement, and hopefully he writes us a good book about how Trump ruined the best years of his life.
Exactly. All right, Steve, we might wrap it up there. And if we come back next week to do another episode, who knows? Maybe all of this would have progressed, you know, all that much further. Maybe we'll have more to talk about next week. Absolutely. All right, so don't forget our website, scitechculture.com. You can get all of our links and content there. You can subscribe to our channels. We've got YouTube and Vimeo. Watch all of our videos there. So greatly appreciate it if you visit our website, and hope you enjoy the content. All right, so that's it for this episode. We'll catch you next time.